The weight of empty plateth the artificial sun cast long shadows across Sanctum 7's main corridor as morning shift began. Through reinforced windows, the barren lunar surface stretched endlessly, a reminder of how far from home everyone had traveled. The rehabilitation colony housed nearly 3,000 souls, human and alien alike, all refugees from the Great Convergence War that had torn through 7 star systems. Zara pressed her back against the cold metal wall, watching the breakfast line form in the central mess hall. Her stomach cramped with familiar hunger, a constant companion these past 6 months. The Ashanti people were naturally slight, but war and rationing had carved her frame to something almost ethereal. Her opalescent skin, once the pride of her species, now appeared dull and translucent. "Look, it's the ghost girl again," sniggered Derek, a human teenager whose parents had died defending Earth's outer colonies. Maybe if she ate something solid for once, she wouldn't look so see-through. The comment drew laughter from his friends. Zara lowered her violet eyes, focusing on the worn metal plates stacked nearby. Her telepathic abilities, dormant since childhood trauma, stirred uncomfortably at the edges of her consciousness. She pushed them down, as she'd learned to do. Across the mess hall, Marcus Webb observed the daily ritual of casual cruelty. The former military engineer had seen enough of war's aftermath to recognize wounded souls, regardless of species. He'd volunteered for Sanctum 7 partly for penance, partly because someone had to care about the forgotten casualties. When the food service began, Zara waited until most others had been served. She approached the counter hesitantly, presenting her identification chip. The human server, exhausted from double shifts, barely glanced up. "Portions are running low today," he muttered, scraping a meager serving of protein paste onto her plate. "Might want to get here earlier next time." Zara nodded silently, knowing that arriving earlier only meant facing more direct hostility. She found her usual spot at an empty table near the wall, partially hidden by a support beam. The paste was flavorless, but nutritious enough to keep her functioning. "Excuse me," a quiet voice said beside her. Marcus stood there, holding his half-finished meal. Without waiting for permission, he sat down across from her, his weathered hands, scarred from years of handling machinery, carefully transferred a portion of his bread and vegetables to her plate. Zara stared at the unexpected addition to her meal, then up at the human man. His gray eyes were kind but tired, and something in them reminded her of her father's expression when he'd comforted frightened patients. "Thank you," she whispered in accented standard galactic, her voice barely audible. Marcus simply nodded and continued eating in comfortable silence. Around them, conversations gradually quieted as others noticed the unusual scene. Some faces showed disapproval, others curiosity, and a few displayed something that might have been shame. When Marcus finished his reduced portion, he stood to leave but paused. "Tomorrow, same time?" he asked simply. Zara single quotes S eyes widened with surprise, and something else, hope, perhaps, or simply the recognition that kindness still existed in this fractured world. "Yes," she replied, and for the first time in months, managed. A small smile. As Marcus walked away, conversation slowly resumed, but the atmosphere had shifted. His simple act of sharing had planted a seed that would grow in ways none of them could yet imagine. Beyond the barriers, 3 weeks of shared meals had evolved into something more meaningful. Marcus and Zara now worked together in hydroponics. Bay 7, where his engineering skills complemented her intuitive understanding of plant biology. The Ashanti had been agricultural specialists before the war, their telepathic abilities allowing them to sense plant health and needs. The tomatoes in Section 4 are struggling, Zara observed, running her slender fingers along the leaves. "They're lonely, I think. They need companion plants." Marcus looked up from calibrating nutrient dispensers, Lonely plants? She blushed, the color shifting across her opalescent skin like aurora light. It's difficult to explain in standard. Galactic. We sense emotional states in living things. Plants have simpler feelings, but they exist. Show me, Marcus said, genuine curiosity replacing skepticism. Zara hesitated, then gently took his hand and placed it on a wilting seedling. Close your eyes. Try to feel what it needs. The warmth of her touch sent unexpected electricity through Marcus's arm. Her skin was softer than silk, and he caught a faint scent like spring rain. For a moment, he thought he sensed something, a yearning, a reaching toward light and nourishment. I think I felt, he began, then stopped as Finn Morrison, the colony's assistant administrator, entered the bay. Webb, we need to talk, Finn announced, his tone sharp. Privately. Marcus reluctantly stepped away from Zara, who immediately busied herself with seedling trays. Finn led him to the storage area. You're getting too involved with the refugees, Finn warned. It's affecting colony dynamics. Some of the human families are complaining about preferential treatment. Sharing food and working together is preferential treatment? You know what I mean. We're here to maintain order until permanent resettlement. Getting emotionally attached complicates things. Marcus's jaw tightened. These people have lost everything. The least we can do is treat them with basic humanity. The aliens aren't people, Webb. They're displaced persons under our temporary care. Don't forget that. After Finn left, Marcus found Zara in the corner, her shoulders trembling slightly. Her telepathic abilities had probably picked up the hostile emotions from their conversation. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't want to cause problems for you. Marcus moved closer, fighting the urge to comfort her physically. You're not causing problems. Fear and ignorance are. That evening, they met in the observation lounge during quiet hours. Through the transparent aluminum dome, Earth hung like a blue marble against star-scattered darkness. Zara had never seen her homeworld from space. It had been destroyed early in the war. Tell me about Ashanti Prime, Marcus requested gently. Zara single quotes S eyes grew distant. Purple seas under twin suns. Cities grown from living coral that sang in harmony with the tides. My family tended the great orchards where fruit trees lived for thousands of years. Her voice broke slightly. My little brother could make flowers bloom just by humming to them. Without thinking, Marcus reached over and covered her hand with his. The contact sent warmth through both of them, and for a moment, Zara's natural telepathic barriers lowered. Marcus glimpsed fragments of her memories, beauty and love torn away by war's brutality. I'm sorry, he said, meaning more than just her losses. Zara looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. You've lost people too. I can sense the grief in you. They sat in comfortable silence, two damaged souls finding solace in shared understanding. Outside, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to war and loss, but somehow offering comfort in their constancy. When Marcus finally walked Zara back to the alien quarters, neither wanted the evening to end. At her door, she turned and touched his cheek gently. Thank you, she said, for seeing me as more than just a refugee. The soft contact lingered even after she disappeared inside, leaving Marcus with a realization that what he felt for Zara was far more complex than simple compassion. The language of touch crisis struck Sanctum 7 during the night shift. Automated systems detected contamination in the primary food processing plant, forcing immediate shutdown. Morning announcements confirmed everyone's worst fears: food supplies would be rationed to emergency levels until decontamination completed. In the mess hall, tensions exploded immediately. Jace Hamilton, a human survivor from the Tau Ceti colony, stood on a table addressing an angry crowd. Why should we starve so the aliens can eat? He shouted. They're the reason the war started in the first place. Send them to the back of every line. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the human sections. Zara, sitting with Marcus, felt waves of hostility washing over her empathic senses. Her control began slipping as fear and hunger awakened dormant telepathic abilities. I need to leave, she whispered urgently, but the crowd blocked the exits. Look at her, Jace continued, pointing directly at Zara. Sitting there reading our minds, probably reporting back to whatever alien command survived the war. She's not a spy, Marcus stood, his voice carrying military authority. She's a refugee, just like the rest of us. Prove it, Jace challenged. Let her show us she's not hiding anything. The crowd's emotional intensity spiked, and Zara gasped as their thoughts suddenly flooded her consciousness. She heard their fears, their grief, their desperate need to blame someone for their losses. The telepathic overload was overwhelming. Stop, she whispered, pressing her hands to her temples. Please, I can't control it. Her distress was visible now. Her skin flickered between colors as her nervous system overloaded. Several people stepped back in alarm as chairs and tables began trembling slightly. Marcus immediately moved to her side, placing his hands on her shoulders. Zara, look at me. Focus on my voice. Their thoughts are so loud, she gasped. I can hear everyone's pain. Then hear mine, Marcus said firmly. Just mine. He cupped her face gently, maintaining eye contact. His thoughts were deliberately calm, focused entirely on her well-being. Slowly, the telepathic storm subsided as she learned to filter through their connection. How did you know to do that? She asked when the episode passed. Instinct, he replied, still holding her face. And because He stopped, suddenly aware of their audience. The mess hall had fallen silent. Witnessing Zara's obvious distress and Marcus's protective response had shifted the mood. Jace looked uncertain now, his righteousness deflated by evidence of her vulnerability. KAIA. An alien healer from the medical bay approached cautiously. Strong emotions trigger involuntary telepathy in trauma survivors, she explained to the humans. She cannot control it any more than you can control your heartbeat under stress. That afternoon, Marcus found Zara in their usual spot in the hydroponics bay, but she was curled up among the tomato plants, crying softly. I'm dangerous, she said when he sat beside her. What if I lose control again? What if I hurt someone? You won't, Marcus said with certainty. And even if you did, it wouldn't be your fault. How can you be sure? Instead of answering with words, Marcus lay down beside her on the growing mat. The space was intimate, surrounded by the green scent of growing things and the soft hum of life support systems. Because I know you, he said simply, turning on his side to face her. Your thoughts, when I can sense them, are full of kindness. You worry about everyone else's pain more than your own. Zara turned toward him, their faces now inches apart. When you touch me, the noise in my head stops. I feel peaceful. Is that why you're not afraid of me? Even after seeing what I can do? Marcus reached up and traced the shifting patterns of color across her cheek. I'm not afraid of you. I'm afraid of losing you. The admission hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Zara closed the distance, pressing her forehead against his. Then don't let go, she whispered when their lips met. It was gentle and desperate, at once two souls finding sanctuary in each other amid the chaos of their fractured world. Healing what was broken, the plague struck without warning. Within 48 hours, nearly 200 colonists were bedridden with fever, respiratory distress, and neurological symptoms that baffled the medical staff. Human and alien physicians worked desperately together, but the pathogen seemed to adapt to every treatment they tried. Marcus found Zara in the medical bay, where she'd been volunteering despite the risk. Her telepathic abilities had proven invaluable for diagnosing patients who couldn't communicate their symptoms. "Any progress?" he asked, noting the exhaustion in her posture. "The disease is intelligent," she said, struggling to find words. "When I touch the patients, I sense something artificial about the infection, like it was designed." Dr. Kaya overheard and approached with Elder Tan, an elderly Ashanti who served on the Refugee Council. "We've been thinking the same thing," Kaya said. "The pathogen targets both human and Ashanti nervous systems specifically. That's not natural evolution." Elder Tan's ancient eyes were grave. "During the war, my people were forced to create biological weapons. This matches the signature of our work, but it's been modified." "Can you create an antidote?" Marcus asked. "Not alone," Tan replied. "Ashanti biotechnology requires telepathic interface. But the human medical equipment could synthesize our organic compounds. We need both techniques working together." The next 24 hours blurred together in a desperate race against time. Zara served as telepathic bridge between Tan's biological expertise and the human medical team. The work was exhausting. She had to maintain mental connection with multiple organisms while helping synthesize complex compounds. Marcus stayed by her side, providing physical and emotional anchor as she pushed her abilities beyond safe limits. Whenever she wavered, his touch steadied her, his calm thoughts cutting through the chaos. "The protein matrix is unstable," she gasped during hour 18, blood trickling from her nose from the mental strain. "You need to rest," Marcus said firmly. "People are dying," she protested. "And you'll be no help to them if you burn out your nervous system." He guided her to a quiet storage room adjoining the lab. She collapsed onto a medical cot, trembling from exhaustion and telepathic overload. "I can feel them all dying," she whispered. "Their fear, their pain. I can't shut it out anymore." Marcus lay down beside her, pulling her against his chest. "Then don't. Let me help you carry it." He'd learned to open his mind to her over the past weeks, allowing their connection to flow both ways. Now he deliberately absorbed some of her telepathic burden, sharing the emotional weight of the crisis. The intimacy of minds touching was more profound than physical contact. Zara felt his love for her, deep and unwavering despite everything. Marcus experienced her compassion for others, even those who treated her cruelly. "I love you," she whispered against his neck. "I love you too," he replied, meaning it with every fiber of his being. What followed was gentle and desperate, two people finding solace in each other while death stalked the corridors outside. Their joining was both physical comfort and spiritual connection, minds and bodies intertwined as completely as two separate beings could manage. Afterward, they lay entwined in the dim storage room, gathering strength for the final push. Zara's abilities had stabilized through their connection, and Marcus felt more centered than he had since the war ended. "Ready to save everyone?" he asked softly. "With you? Anything is possible." They returned to the lab as Elder Tan made the breakthrough. The cure required precise telepathic manipulation during synthesis, but Zara was now strong enough to maintain the connection. Within 6 hours, they had enough antidote to begin treatments. As the first patients recovered, human and alien colonists worked side by side to distribute medicine and care for the sick. The crisis had done what months of coexistence couldn't, proven that survival required cooperation, not separation. Watching former enemies now helping each other, Marcus squeezed Zara's hand. "Think it'll stick once the emergency passes?" She smiled, her opalescent skin shimmering with renewed health. "Some things, once changed, can never go back to how they were before." New Horizons. 6 months later, the rescue ships arrived like silver stars against the black of space. Captain Elena Vale of the Federation vessel, Harmony brought news that permanent settlements were ready to receive Sanctum 7's refugees. The announcement sparked both celebration and anxiety throughout the colony. Families would be relocated based on species compatibility and available resources. Most humans were headed for New Terra, a freshly terraformed world in the Centauri system. The alien refugees were being distributed among various sanctuary worlds. According to their biological needs, Marcus found Zara in their favorite spot in the observation lounge, staring out at the approaching ships with unreadable expression. "The Ashanti survivors are being sent to Verdania Prime," she said without looking at him. "It has purple seas and binary suns, similar to my homeworld." "That sounds wonderful," Marcus replied carefully, sensing the sadness beneath her words. "The human colony ships don't have life support compatible with Ashanti physiology for extended journeys. We'll be traveling separately." The unspoken question hung between them like a chasm. Marcus sat beside her, taking her hand in his familiar gesture of comfort. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want to stay with you," she admitted. "But I also want to see purple seas again, to be among my own people. I feel guilty for even considering leaving the other survivors." "And I want to be wherever you are," Marcus said. "But I don't know if a human could survive long-term on an alien world." Their dilemma was interrupted by young Ren Castellano, a human boy who'd become something of a mascot for the integrated community that had emerged after the plague crisis. At 8 years old, he'd formed friendships across species lines with the unconscious ease of childhood. "Are you really leaving?" he asked Zara directly. "I don't know yet, little one. But you and Marcus taught me about the plants, and you helped. When I was sick, who's going to do that on Verdania? Out of the mouths of babes." Marcus and Zara exchanged glances, both thinking of the dozens of similar relationships they'd built over the past year. Zara had trained several humans in empathic plant care, while Marcus had taught alien youth about human technology. "Maybe," Zara said slowly, "the question isn't where we're going, but what we're building." That evening, they sought out Captain Vale with a proposal that surprised even themselves. What if some colonists chose to stay together, regardless of species? What if Sanctum 7 became a permanent settlement instead of a temporary way station? "It's irregular," Vale admitted. "The colony was never meant to be self-sustaining long-term." "But it is sustaining," Marcus argued. "We've proven humans and aliens can not only coexist, but thrive together. The agricultural yields are higher than any monospecies colony. Our survival rate through the plague was better than established. Worlds, the logistics would be complicated," Vale mused. "Ongoing supply runs, specialized equipment for multiple species." "Worth it, though," Zara added quietly. "For what we've built here." Over the following weeks, the choice split the colony. About half the residents chose to relocate to species-specific worlds, ready to rebuild familiar lives. But nearly 1,500 souls, human and alien alike, petitioned to remain on Sanctum-7. Eldercan was among those staying. "I'm too old to start over again," he said. "Better to help nurture what's already growing." Finn Morrison, surprisingly, also chose to remain, his attitudes transformed by witnessing the community's resilience. "Someone has to handle the bureaucracy," he grumbled. But his expression was fond as he watched mixed groups of children playing in the corridors. On the day the transport ships departed, Marcus and Zara stood at the same observation window where they'd first shared their stories. The colony felt different, now smaller, but more intentional, like a family rather than a refugee camp. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked, watching the ships disappear among the stars. Zara leaned against his shoulder, her hand resting on the slight curve of her belly, where their child grew, a miracle of human Ashanti, genetics that the medical staff was still studying with wonder. "Only that it took a war to bring us together," she said. Outside their window, Earth hung in the void alongside. A dozen other worlds, all connected now by the bonds forged in Sanctum 7's corridors. What had begun with one simple act of sharing a meal had grown into something unprecedented, truly integrated society, where differences were celebrated rather than feared. As if sensing their thoughts, little Ren appeared at the window beside them, pressing his small hands against the transparent aluminum. "Look," he said with the casual wisdom of childhood, "you can see all the worlds from here. We're right in the middle of everything." Marcus and Zara smiled, knowing he was right in more ways than one. Sanctum 7 had become the center of something new, a place where the future was being written, one shared meal, one act of kindness, one love story at a time. In the hydroponics bay, the tomatoes were blooming magnificently, tended by hands both human and alien, thriving in the soil of understanding they'd all helped create.